If you were the only girl in the world.
My name is Deirdre Kinahan and I'm a playwright. I live in County Meath in Ireland. It's a rural community about an hour north of Dublin. For 8 years I was writer in residence in a rural theatre in Ireland. So I wrote out of that environment very particular stories that affected the people in that world but also had universal themes, and I think that's where I feel very comfortable, writing about big issues in small rooms. I'm used to coming at things in a different way, coming at them from the side. So I think the opportunity to write a play that was going to tour to a number of spaces in the UK that were very personal to people and communities felt like a real honour, as well as a challenge. So I had this notion of this character, and a lot of the music from the period was playing in my head. I was interested in vaudeville, I was interested in First World War songs and music, a lot of Victorian music, and it was playing in my head. And the more I looked at it, I began to imagine my character playing a piano and telling the extraordinary story of his life. But he's a very ordinary man. And that began to form the seeds of the play. I couldn't help thinking about contemporary wars and those stories and those characters and how people are affected by that. Who are the people who are left over? Who are the survivors? What's their psyche? How do they come back to a world that, even though it has experienced it, hasn't experienced it firsthand? So how do they fit in? How do they find their place again? And then I wondered about contemporary wars and a character who had been dislocated by a contemporary war, a character who had witnessed carnage, mud, blood, murder and loss firsthand, to find herself in a very different place, in a different world, in a different life, and still trying to live in it and be in it and be relevant within it and cope within it. And I was very interested in the idea of the Bosnian War, the breakup of Yugoslavia, because it's quite a contemporary war, yet it's 20 years ago. And I know people who were refugees in Ireland and England from that war, and how they've created new worlds and new lives for themselves here. So we had the idea of having a 2-act play. The first act looking at Michael and that notion of the young boy from Ireland who ends up fighting in the British Army in the First World War, and then ends up more or less a refugee after the war in the UK, and is trying to find himself and find a new life there. And then we go to the second act, and we've got a different character. We've got a woman called Mariana, who is from Sarajevo, and who was a victim of that war, and a refugee from that war, but now lives a life in a small rural village in England. So it's looking at those two characters and looking at how they're deeply affected by a cathartic event, but because they are survivors, how they reshape themselves and reshape their communities. So that's what's at the core of this play, and I'm very excited about it.